I am Ava Miller, a 26-year-old freelance graphic designer. It was 1 a.m. on Christmas Eve. 30 people. 12 straight hours of chopping and brining. My body ached from the sheer, unpaid labor. The kitchen was quiet, but it was the heavy silence of utter exhaustion. Then Mom floated in. Her words, clipped and cold, were the final instruction: Camille is too busy. You have to help your sister, Ava. Do not forget the gravy. That was the moment I decided to board a plane instead. But why did they believe I was obligated to cook for them for 15 years? And why was my work as a freelance designer always dismissed? To understand why I left that Christmas, you need the backstory. My role as the kitchen helper started when I was barely 15. Camille, 2 years older, was allowed to pursue hobbies and friends. I was quietly handed the apron and the grocery list. Fast forward a decade. Camille is the celebrated event planner, her career seen as legitimate. My successful work as a freelance graphic designer? My parents, Richard and Helen, constantly dismissed it as a simple hobby. That disparity of respect fueled years of silent resentment. What was the ultimate, selfish request that made me realize this dynamic was never going to change, and that my flight was the only way out? Camille was the golden child. Her stress was always valid, her time, precious. She'd sweep in hours before a party, drop off a store-bought dessert, and soak up the praise. Meanwhile, my 15 hours of labor in the kitchen were simply expected, never thanked, never compensated. My parents actively enabled this dynamic. Dad, Richard, would often say, "Well, Ava, you're a freelancer, so your hours are flexible. Camille has a real job." They never saw that meeting a design deadline at 5 a.m. was harder than basting a turkey. This lack of respect cut deeper than any knife. My role was clear: the silent, highly competent helper, always available. I realized my presence wasn't valued. Only my labor was. This Christmas, I finished the job, but decided that for the first time in my life, I would be the one with the valuable, non-negotiable schedule. The flight was booked, the ticket was in my pocket. But what was the one, critical thing I did right before leaving that guaranteed maximum chaos the next morning? This Christmas was different. 30 guests. Not family, but Camille's corporate clients and high society friends. The fridge was a disaster of prime cuts and imported cheeses. I was expected to cater a professional event, alone, unpaid, while Camille casually reviewed table settings in the living room. They didn't know I had already secured my freedom, a flight to Seattle, booked weeks ago, a personal Christmas present. They demanded I cancel it. Dad said, "Family comes first, Ava." I smiled thinly, silently agreeing. Yes, family did come first, my chosen future family. I refused to cancel the flight, but I didn't argue. Instead, I worked harder than ever. What was I meticulously preparing for, knowing I would leave it all behind in just a few hours? I worked with a clinical, almost robotic focus. I cooked meticulously, the turkey brined perfectly, the potatoes prepped for roasting, the gravy base simmered just right. I wasn't cooking for them anymore, I was fulfilling a contract with myself to leave nothing unfinished, leaving no excuse for guilt. Every time Mom or Dad asked me if I was helping enough, I'd nod and smile while visualizing the suitcase packed and hidden under my bed. They saw compliance, I felt quiet, burning anger. They were forcing me to choose, and I had chosen freedom, not servitude. I kept checking the time, 2:30 a.m. My flight was scheduled for 6 a.m. Soon, I would trade the smell of roasted onions for the fresh, cold air of Seattle. This wasn't revenge, it was a strategic, silent act of self-preservation. I couldn't wait. The kitchen was finished, the house was dark. What was the simple, bold message I left on the counter that would instantly tell them I was gone, and that I wasn't coming back? The next 2 hours were a blur of methodical effort. I prepped the stuffing and cranberry sauce, carefully labeling each container for the next morning's reheat. No music, no background chatter, just the low hum of the fridge and the metallic click of my knife. The isolation was profound. I didn't just cook, I cleaned. Every pot, every utensil, scrubbed spotless. The exhaustion was so deep I could taste it. But I wouldn't leave them a mess to complain about. I wanted my absence to be pure, unadulterated consequence, not a lapse in my assigned duty. At 2:55 a.m., I stood back. Every surface gleamed. 30 plates, ready. All the hard work was done. I looked at the spotless kitchen, a perfect stage for the chaos I was about to unleash by simply stepping away. The revenge wasn't in the mess, it was in the meticulously prepared vacuum. The clock was ticking down to 3 a.m. I was ready. But what short, decisive note did I write and leave on the counter that would instantly tell my mother and Camille that their free labor had signed off for good? Standing in that quiet, immaculate kitchen, the fatigue wasn't just physical. It was the weight of years being the overlooked sister, the reliable background character. Every holiday, every family crisis, my needs were instantly dismissed in favor of Camille's manufactured urgency. This kitchen wasn't a place of warmth, it was a psychological trap. A symbol of the familial contract. I provide labor, they provide a sense of belonging, a belonging that felt conditional and fragile. I realized I was paying a crippling emotional debt just to remain in their good graces. No more. The thought of that boarding pass, the flight to Seattle, was my true Christmas miracle. It wasn't about teaching them a lesson. It was about finally choosing myself. The moment I walked out, the contract was null and void, and my emotional debt was paid in full. The contract was void, the bags were packed, and the kitchen was spotless. What simple, forward note did I leave on the counter, knowing it would cause maximum damage when they woke up and found their chef missing? The planning phase was my secret weapon. Hours before the midnight cooking started, I had packed a small carry-on, noise-canceling headphones, a good book, and my Seattle flight confirmation. I checked it one last time, a tangible representation of the freedom I was about to claim. I needed to be utterly silent. My parents' room was at the end of the hall. I planned the exact route, slow steps, hugging the wall to avoid creaks, and leaving the front door unlocked, ready for my quick escape. The smallest sound could trigger a disaster, so the tension was immense. I grabbed a small sticky note and a pen. The message had to be short, final, and undeniable. It wasn't a long explanation or a plea. It was a declaration of my new priorities. Leaving that note on the freshly wiped counter was the final, quiet act of ultimate rebellion. The note was placed, the apron was off. What 4 simple words did I write that turned a kitchen of preparation into a crime scene of abandonment when they woke up? I didn't want confrontation. Confrontation gives them power to argue. My note had to be a quiet statement, an unanswerable declaration. I used a simple sticky note and a pen, deliberately placing it beside the roasting pan, the centerpiece of their expectation. I wrote 4 words that reversed our roles entirely. 4 words that said, "Your needs are no longer my emergency." I didn't sign it. I didn't apologize. It was clean, cold, and utterly final. It turned my departure from a tantrum into a business decision. The contract was terminated. I gave the note one last look. It represented years of dismissed effort and the absolute liberation I was claiming. The kitchen was finished, the apron was shed. I finally felt like a competent, respected professional whose time was valuable, even if only to myself. What were those 4 powerful words that signaled my rebellion and confirmed that I was about to trade the chaotic Miller kitchen for the quiet freedom of Seattle? It was exactly 3 a.m. I had just finished arranging the last tray of cinnamon rolls for a quick morning bake. Every piece of china was in place, every spice jar put away. The relief of knowing the physical labor was over hit me, sharp and sudden. I was done being the silent workhorse. I slipped into my room and gently pulled the pre-packed suitcase from under the bed. Walking down the hall was an exercise in pure tension. Each floorboard was a potential alarm. I moved like a ghost, past my parents' closed door, holding my breath, fueled only by the desire for my 6 a.m. flight. I reached the front door. Placing the note strategically on the kitchen counter, "Enjoy your Christmas. I'm busy," was the final, satisfying click of my plan. I silently slipped out the front door, pulling it shut without a sound. I wasn't running from them, I was running to Seattle, to my own life. What happened when I boarded that plane and finally turned off my phone, knowing the chaos I had left behind was just beginning? I can visualize the scene perfectly. 8 a.m., Christmas morning. Mom and Camille waltz into the kitchen, expecting me there, already cooking. Instead, they find the spotless counter, the pre-prepped food, and the small, stark note waiting. The silence of the kitchen would have been the first warning. Camille would have grabbed the note first. 4 words, "Enjoy your Christmas. I'm busy." The shock must have been immediate. 30 high-profile guests arriving in 3 hours, and their free, highly competent chef has vanished. They would have scanned the room frantically, realizing the true gravity of my absence. My phone, now powered off and safely stored in my carry-on bag at 30,000 feet, would have been ringing non-stop. I imagine Dad, Richard, shouting into his phone, demanding I answer. Camille would be frantically calling every catering service in a 50-mile radius, all booked solid, of course. Meanwhile, I felt only the quiet vibration of the plane engine beneath my feet. Their panic was finally, deliciously, their problem. I took a deep breath of the recycled air, smiled at the flight attendant, and ordered a pricey little drink. It was the most peaceful Christmas morning I had ever known. Did they manage to save the party? And what was their immediate attempt to contact me once they realized I was completely unreachable? The moment the plane lifted off the ground, a wave of exhilaration hit me. It wasn't just physical movement, it was a psychological break. I watched the houses shrink below, knowing that one of those roofs belonged to a family in utter shock. That feeling of lightness was worth more than any Christmas gift. I opened my phone one last time, saw a torrent of panicked messages, from Mom, from Camille, even Dad. Then, I switched it off and tucked it deep into my bag. Disconnecting was the true act of liberation. For the first time, my time, attention, and energy were entirely mine. No demands, no arguments, just clear air. I put on my headphones and watched the sunrise paint the sky orange and pink over the clouds. The weight of servitude had vanished. I was Ava Miller, the freelance graphic designer, not the unpaid family chef. I closed my eyes and smiled. The freedom was quiet, profound, and utterly peaceful. What does a Christmas spent completely alone, on my own terms, actually look like when you've never had a holiday to yourself? The genius of my plan was the food itself. Everything was prepped, brined, chopped, seasoned, but nothing was cooked. Mom, a culinary disaster, wouldn't know the difference between the roasting temperature for prime rib and a slow cooker setting. She'd panic, realizing the sheer complexity of what I usually handled alone. Camille's reaction would be priceless. This party was crucial for her networking. Suddenly, she wasn't the glamorous event planner, she was the sister who couldn't even heat up a pre-made dish. I picture her screaming into her phone, trying to spin a rustic, DIY Christmas to her high-end guests. And Dad, Richard, the one who dismissed my job as a hobby, would now be desperately Googling how to make gravy fast. He couldn't delegate the problem away, and he couldn't bully it into submission. He'd realized that paying $500 for a last-minute catering disaster was the price of his respect. As I sipped my terrible, but expensive, plain coffee, I felt the satisfying burn of justice. They weren't just missing a chef, they were missing the safety net that had held their entire privileged lifestyle together for a decade. The chaos I imagined was music to my ears. Did their Christmas party descend into total anarchy, or did they manage to find a quick, embarrassing fix? And how did they finally reach me? I finally understood that my kindness wasn't valued, it was leveraged. Every time I said yes to cooking, I was reinforcing the idea that my time and my professional career as a designer were secondary to Camille's social calendar. The flight was the exact price of reclaiming my self-respect. They never asked, "How is the Seattle design pitch going?" or "Do you need help with your client deadline?" It was always about the turkey, the mashed potatoes, the endless gravy. I realized my worth to them was strictly measured in BTUS and BYOBS, cooking energy and bringing your own side dish. The air was smooth. I felt a profound sense of nothingness, no obligation, no anxiety. No need to perform. I was heading to a city where no one knew my family history or my kitchen role. Just Ava, the designer, and the promise of a quiet, intentional life. That was the real Christmas magic. What was the first, glorious thing I did when I checked into my hotel in Seattle? And how soon did the inevitable phone calls from my frantic family start flooding my voicemail? I checked into the small, cozy hotel in downtown Seattle. No frantic unpacking, no last-minute cooking. My Christmas morning started with room service, a giant plate of pancakes I didn't have to make, and watching terrible, cheerful holiday movies. The novelty of having zero obligations was intoxicating. It was a day dedicated entirely to me. I bought a stupidly expensive coffee, walked through the quiet, rainy streets, and actually stopped to look at the lights, something I never had time for back home. Every minute was a radical act of self-care, a deliberate contrast to the kitchen tyranny I had fled. Later, I finally turned on my phone, setting it to silent. The screen immediately lit up with 12 missed calls and 4 long, angry voicemails. I didn't listen to them. I smiled, placed the phone face down, and continued reading my book. The silence was the sweetest sound of all. What were the initial, desperate demands in those voicemails, and how did they try to spin my disappearance to their high-profile guests? I imagined the moment Mom realized the massive, brined turkey was still ice-cold in the fridge. Not raw, but requiring 5 hours of precise roasting. Dad would have exploded, not at Camille, but at the injustice of my absence. The note was instantly crumpled, the words "I'm busy" fueling their self-righteous rage. Of course, the immediate response wasn't self-reflection. It was a frantic, loud argument between Mom and Camille. "Why didn't you help her last night?" "I was networking, Mom." She should have known better than to skip a family commitment. The irony was thick. They were arguing over who should have overseen the free labor they took for granted. Camille's calls to luxury caterers would have been met with polite, firm refusals. It's Christmas Day, no one takes last-minute, professional jobs for 30 people. She must have resorted to driving to the nearest high-end deli, desperate to buy anything that looked vaguely like a homemade holiday meal. The shame wasn't the food, it was the loss of face. When the first important guests arrived, the spin would begin. "Oh, Ava, our little chef, had a sudden severe illness and had to leave. We're having a delightful, spontaneous deli lunch instead." A beautiful lie, crumbling the moment the guest realized there was no turkey. The party was a flop, but their revenge was just starting. What was the first threat they left on my voicemail that revealed just how far they were willing to go to force me back home? The noise of the failed party would eventually recede, replaced by a devastating silence in the kitchen. That's when the true realization would set in. It wasn't just that the turkey was raw, it was that no amount of money or frantic calling could conjure up the knowledge, the skill, or the sheer willingness I brought. Camille, usually poised, would have a mini collapse. Not over the food, but over the catastrophic damage to her reputation. She suddenly couldn't hide behind her busy career. She was exposed as someone who relied entirely on a sister she constantly undermined. The professional facade cracked wide open. For 15 years, their power over me was the assumption that I would always show up. My absence redefined the power dynamic completely. I was thousands of miles away, enjoying a guilt-free day, while they were trapped by their own entitlements. The feeling wasn't rage, it was cold, pure satisfaction. The next step? They wouldn't blame themselves. They'd immediately begin searching for a scapegoat, and that scapegoat had to be me. They'd concoct stories about my unprofessionalism or mental break to save face for their guests and for their own fragile egos. This realization only strengthened my resolve. How did my family attempt to weaponize my own career against me to force my return? And what was the one final action I took to prove my complete independence? I finally listened to the voicemails. The first was Mom, demanding I call back, already trying to manipulate guilt. The second was Camille, cold fury, "You ruined my career party, Ava. You better get back here and apologize." Their voices were sharp, desperate, and utterly devoid of concern for me. The last message, from Dad, was the punchline. He threatened to call my biggest client, claiming I was unstable due to family stress and demanding they hire Camille's event planning company instead. That confirmed it. They didn't just want me back, they wanted to destroy my independence to re-establish control. I didn't send a long email. I didn't engage. I sent a simple text message to the group chat. "I'm forwarding your voicemail threats to HR and my lawyer. Do not contact me again." Then I blocked them all. That one message redefined the game, shifting the power entirely into my hands. That night, I slept better than I had in 15 years. No fear of the 5 a.m. alarm, no smell of stale turkey, just the knowledge that the battle was over, and I had won. The revenge wasn't in the raw food, it was in the boundary I had finally and ruthlessly established. Did they heed my warning, or did they risk involving themselves with my lawyer? And what was the sweet irony of my success in Seattle? Dad's threat about my client was the classic Miller tactic, hit where it hurts most. But I was ready. The next day, I spent 2 focused hours composing a professional email, detailing the nature of the voicemails and the threats to my career. I sent it to my HR contact and my lawyer simultaneously. The beauty of legal language is its lack of emotion. I didn't argue, I simply documented their attempted professional sabotage. My lawyer immediately sent them a cease and desist letter. Their attempts at manipulation were now being filtered through cold, impersonal legal paperwork. They couldn't yell at a document. After that, the phone calls stopped dead. The Millers understood only one language, consequence. When I became a professional liability rather than a free resource, their interest evaporated. The silence wasn't fear, it was recognition that I was no longer playing their game, and that they had officially lost control. My life in Seattle blossomed instantly. I started the design pitch for the client Dad threatened, and the client loved it. I finally had space for my career, for new friendships, and for peace. I traded their chaos for my quiet success. And that, truly, was the final act of revenge. Did I ever see my family again after the lawyer's letter? And what surprising news did I receive 6 months later that proved my silent rebellion had a lasting impact? People think revenge is the turkey being raw or the party being ruined. That's just consequence. The real revenge was realizing I didn't need their approval or their chaos. It was the simple, profound shift from living to please them to living to fulfill myself. The food sabotage was the setup, the self-respect was the payoff. I looked at my reflection in the window. No dark circles, no tension lines. The physical toll of constantly walking on eggshells for their comfort was finally gone. I felt a surge of empathy for the young, overworked Ava who thought her worth was tied to how many side dishes she could perfectly plate. The legal letter created a definitive, uncrossable boundary. There was sadness, yes, for the family I wished I had, but no regret for the one I left. The past was a closed chapter, and the future was a clean slate, financed and defined by my own skills and efforts. I was finally, irrevocably, independent. The silence from them wasn't victory, my life here was. I closed my notebook, ready to pitch a new client. No turkey, no tension. Just a sunny, professional future. Did they ever attempt to contact me again after the lawyer's letter? And what surprising consequence did Camille face in her own career due to the Christmas disaster? The lawyer's letter did the job. Total radio silence. New Year's Eve arrived, and for the first time in my life, I didn't spend it prepping hors d'oeuvres for 40 people. I ordered takeout, watched the ball drop in my pajamas, and felt an immense, simple wave of serenity. There were moments, brief flashes, where the old guilt tried to creep in. Maybe I should send a text? Just to check in? But then I'd remember the voicemail threat, the entitlement, the years of silent sacrifice. I deleted the draft message. That resistance was the true measure of my growth. My career in Seattle took off. With no obligation to fly home or spend weekends cooking, I focused on my design firm. I signed 3 new major clients within 3 months, clients I never would have had the capacity for back home. The freedom wasn't just emotional, it was financially empowering. I realized the Millers existed in a toxic bubble of their own creation. My leaving didn't destroy them, it forced them to face a reality they'd ignored. But that was their problem. I had built a new, healthier world for myself, where my worth was measured by my portfolio, not by a gravy boat. But silence doesn't mean victory is complete. What was the small, surprising piece of gossip I heard 6 months later that confirmed the Miller family drama had a lasting, delicious consequence? The energy I once spent agonizing over the perfect gravy recipe or polishing my sister's reputation was now poured into my design work. It was an astonishing transfer of power. My focus sharpened. Without the constant psychological drain of the Millers, I became the most efficient version of myself. The pitch for the major tech client, the one Dad threatened to sabotage, didn't just go well, it was a huge success. They loved my concept. Winning that contract wasn't just a business victory, it was a personal validation. It proved that my worth wasn't derived from my family, it was achieved despite them. My return on investment wasn't monetary, it was seeing my work respected and paid for fairly. That professional recognition was the antidote to years of familial dismissal. I had traded the exhausting role of the family servant for the fulfilling reality of a respected expert. That felt like true power. But what happened to my sister, Camille, back home? Did she manage to salvage her reputation after the Christmas Day debacle, or did the lack of a free family chef finally catch up with her? Months of silence were broken by a ping. Not from my immediate family, but from Aunt Carol, the only one who ever showed genuine concern. She didn't call, she sent a cryptic message asking if I was okay. My first reaction was caution. Was this a genuine outreach, or a new spy mission from my parents? I waited a full day to reply. My message was brief and factual. I'm in Seattle, doing great with my design firm. I moved for work. I deliberately kept it professional and neutral, offering no details about the chaos or the lawyering. Establishing selective contact meant controlling the narrative entirely. Aunt Carol asked, "Is there any chance you'll come home for Easter?" I replied immediately. No. My work schedule won't allow it, and I'm not breaking my legal boundaries. This was the new Ava, firm, unapologetic, and prioritizing her professional commitments over their emotional demands. Did Aunt Carol reveal any secrets about the Miller family fallout? And what was the ultimate, satisfying news I received about Camille's career that cemented my victory? 6 months later, I hosted a dinner party. Not a 50-person networking gala, but a quiet evening for 4 new friends. The menu? Simple pasta and wine, my choice. The realization that I could use my kitchen for joy, not servitude, filled me with a quiet burst of happiness. The conversation was easy, focused on art, design, and Seattle life. There was no pressure to impress, no forced laughter, and certainly no obligation to clean up alone. For the first time, I felt like a genuine participant in a social event, not the invisible staff. This was true social currency. Then, I heard the gossip through a distant contact. Camille's party disaster had cost her several major contracts. And she was now desperately seeking a new Christmas venue with catering included. The beautiful irony, my revenge wasn't the turkey, it was the ripple effect of my absence on her highly valued career. I smiled into my wine glass. My escape had not only bought me freedom, success, and peace, but it had inadvertently handed out the just consequence my sister deserved. I had won the game by refusing to play. But what about Mom and Dad? Did they finally have to cook their own Christmas dinner the next year? Or did they replace me with a new, equally exploited family member? It's been a year since I traded a raw Christmas turkey for a one-way ticket to Seattle. A year since I last heard the manipulative urgency in my mother's voice or the entitled arrogance in my sister's. Time has a funny way of stripping the drama away, leaving only the hard-won clarity behind. I found an old photo album. Pictures of Camille and me as kids, genuinely smiling, before the pressure, before the expectation, before the kitchen became my prison. There was a faint pang of sadness, not for what I lost, but for the childhood I thought I had. That Ava was still seeking approval. It wasn't just about the cooking. It was about being systematically undervalued. It was the daily, subtle erosion of my self-worth until I believed my greatest contribution was the precision of my roux. Recognizing that pattern of abuse was the most painful, yet most freeing, part of my journey. My life in Seattle is defined by quiet competence. I work hard, I get paid well, and I control my own time. The quiet of my apartment, devoid of my parents' demands, is now the most luxurious sound in the world. It's the sound of ownership over my choices, my career, my life. Financially, I'm more stable than ever. The money I save not flying back for mandatory family events or buying ingredients for their massive parties is now invested in my own business. Every invoice I send is a direct contradiction to Dad's old belief that my design work was just a cute hobby. I did hear one final piece of gossip, months after the lawyer's letter. Camille's reputation suffered more than I initially thought. She lost the big tech contract, not because of me, but because the Christmas food fiasco exposed her chaotic lack of contingency planning. Her facade cracked publicly, the irony is delicious. They wanted to control me. Instead, my silent protest destabilized their entire social structure. I didn't have to actively destroy them, I just had to remove the foundation they stood on. That realization gave me a deep, satisfying peace that rage never could. Do I forgive them? No. Forgiveness implies the relationship is salvageable, and mine isn't. But I have achieved something better than forgiveness, indifference. They are now simply people I used to know. Their opinions are irrelevant noise. That is the ultimate freedom. I'm planning my next Christmas. It involves a small cabin, a fireplace, and zero expectations from anyone. No 20-pound turkey, just my favorite wine and a good book. I learned that choosing peace over chaos is the greatest gift you can give yourself. This isn't just a story about a turkey. It's a blueprint for escaping familial entitlement, setting hard boundaries, and reclaiming your own worth. If you're the family scapegoat, the free labor, the silent doormat, know this, your absence is your power. So what's the next chapter? Now that I've built my own fortress of solitude and success, what is the ultimate advice I would give to anyone still trapped in their own family revenge story? So, after all that drama, the escape, the silence, the surprise career fallout, what's the real takeaway? I made this video because I know my story isn't unique. If you're out there being the family sponge, the free therapist, or the unpaid chef, listen closely. Lesson 1, your guilt is their weapon. I used to believe I owed them my life because they raised me. That sentiment became the chain holding me to their demands. You can be grateful without being a slave. Recognize when appreciation turns into entitlement. Guilt is a form of control. They made no seem like a violation of the 10 Commandments. But no is a complete sentence. It's an assertion of self-respect. If they can't handle one simple no, they don't respect you, they respect your services. That realization should give you the strength to stand firm. Lesson 2, plan your escape financially and professionally. My only advantage was I waited until I had the Seattle job offer and the money for the plane ticket. Don't run with zero backup. Your financial independence is the steel wall that keeps their manipulation out. Your savings account is your best lawyer. Never underestimate the power of making your conflict formal. The lawyer's letter wasn't about winning a lawsuit, it was about creating a neutral, professional barrier they couldn't breach with emotion or guilt. When they threaten your professional life, you counter with professional boundaries. My family operated on the myth that I needed them more than they needed me. My disappearance destroyed that myth. You are competent. You are capable. The only thing they provide is distraction and burden. When you remove that burden, you will find you are already whole. Lesson 3: Aim for indifference, not revenge. Revenge requires energy and connection. Indifference is complete disconnection. When their actions genuinely stop bothering you, when their opinion holds zero weight, you have achieved the ultimate win. Your peace is the only metric that matters. Stop seeking their approval. Notice the physical difference. The stress and anxiety of living under their thumb will manifest physically. When you break free, you'll see your sleep improve, your tension headaches disappear, and your overall health return. Freedom is not just emotional, it's physiological. Prioritize your physical well-being. Lesson 4: Your time is your most valuable asset. I wasted years perfecting a Thanksgiving turkey when I should have been perfecting my portfolio. The moment I reclaimed those hours, my career exploded. Redirect the time you spent catering to their needs into building your own future. Time spent on self-investment is never wasted. Lesson 5: Your absence is your power. They will only truly value you when you are no longer available. Don't wait for them to change. Change your environment. Change your location. The revenge is living well, successfully, and peacefully, far away from their chaos. Go build the life they told you wasn't possible. My story is over, but yours might be just beginning. What is the one small step you can take today, not tomorrow, not next week, but today, to start reclaiming your time and your worth? Thank you for watching, and remember, your well-being is worth more than any family tradition. Drop a comment below with your own turkey tip, a small act of rebellion that helped you reclaim your boundaries. And don't forget to subscribe to follow my journey as I build a life completely outside the Miller family shadow. Let's get to the core moral takeaway, the central lesson I learned. This story isn't about holiday food or petty family squabbles. It's about recognizing the slow, insidious decay of your soul when you sacrifice your integrity for the illusion of belonging. I spent years believing that being the good daughter meant being the silent servant. I internalized their low estimation of me. If you're nodding along, feeling that familiar knot in your stomach, know this: your worth is innate. It's not something you earn with a perfect hollandaise. They didn't just steal my time, they stole my focus. They stole the creative energy I needed to build this, my actual career. Think about what your family is subtly stealing from you every time they pull you back in. Is it your peace? Your savings? Your chance at real success? My legal letter wasn't an act of malice, it was an act of extreme self-respect. Boundaries aren't walls built to keep others out, they are fences built to keep you in, safe and protected. If someone escalates a simple boundary to war, you know exactly who they are and what their true agenda is. The beautiful payoff is not seeing them fail, it's seeing yourself succeed. My revenge was finding joy in my simple pasta dinner, signing my big client, and knowing I slept soundly. Your personal triumph is the ultimate suck-it moment you will ever experience. Focus on your success, not their defeat. What is the one boundary you need to set today to start reclaiming your life? Tell me in the comments below. And let's turn these family revenge stories into tales of personal triumph.